Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Vanessa and you are watching the Exploring Oracle, or the Exploracle for short. Let's continue with my deck collection series. And if this is your first time catching this series, what I'm doing now is I'm showing you my entire deck collection. Try to group them as best as I can into specific categories. Go through each deck, talk about it a little bit, and decide whether I want to keep the deck, if I'm not too sure about it, or if I will be rehoming it. Now, who can guess what category we are at today? And if you guess astrology decks, you are right. So we're talking about my astrology decks, and if you have been watching my older videos, you'll know that I have this interest to learn astrology together with tarot. And it's been 3 years, but I haven't progressed much. You know, I do think I know a little bit more about astrology than I did when I started, but I wouldn't consider it like a meaningful improvement. But I do have these decks, so let's talk about them. Starting off with these decks, I think these are like the ones that are the more basic astrology decks, in the sense that it shows the planets, it shows the zodiacs, etc., and talks about them. Okay, and the rest of the decks would be ones that are more they're not specifically like learning decks, but they do have a focus on astrological meanings in the guidebook as well. So this one is the Astro Cards. This is a mass market deck by AGM Publishing, and this is what the guidebook looks like. And I got this primarily to study. Most of these decks, especially in the astrology category, I got to study. And it's in my head, you know, instead of buying a dedicated book to astrology, but I do have a couple as well, I decided to get oracle cards that have decent guidebooks. So that's my thinking, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, because I haven't really, well, even the standalone books, I haven't really gone through them. I have a lot of plans, but not a lot of time. So yeah, I really like the art, the simplicity of the art on this deck, which is why I got it. And then the guidebook also looks quite nice, but as you can probably tell, haven't really used this deck. So given that, and maybe just a disclaimer, most of the decks here, especially the ones here that like the ones that I have to read, or I want to read the guidebook and learn about astrology, I am going to keep. I mean, the art style here is really quite nice, so I do enjoy it. Okay, the cardstock is, it's a nice mass market cardstock. That's, I think, how I would describe this deck, or the cardstock here. It's satin finish, shuffles really well. It feels like it would shuffle really well. Not sticky, doesn't stick or clump, so I think it would riffle shuffle well as well. So no issues here, and definitely keeping. Next we have the Stellar Visions Oracle cards, and this one again has a pretty sizable chunky guidebook. So one of those things that I want to read, want to learn from, definitely keeping. And I love the art on this deck. It's my kind of aesthetic, which is weird because I do feel like I'm not really into, I don't know how to describe it. It feels like it's a bit collagey, and I'm not really into that, but also watercolory, which I love. Maybe it's the pastels, maybe it's like this, it feels sophisticated. So I really enjoy the art style. The cards are bigger, but I don't really mind it, because I'm thinking of using it like an altar card or as a learning deck. So it's fine that it's this big. I mean, look at the details. So yeah, I really like the art style on this particular deck. So also a keep. Now I am thinking of edging this because it feels a little there, but haven't found the time to do that. So that is the second deck. And here we have the cosmic cards. So another mass market deck. This is a modern astrology and tarot guide. So this I bought specifically for the book. And the reason for that is because it supposedly ties the astrology to the tarot cards, which again is what I'm trying to learn, what I'm trying to work on. When I initially started tarot as well, you know, I want that association in my readings, but it's so complicated, and I think I'm just over, or I don't know, I'm just too excited to learn all of these things, but I know it's not a realistic goal for me. But still something that I aspire to get. So the guidebook is really good. Now the cards are not that great. So they're very flimsy. If you can see, it's very thin, like thin cardstock. The art style is minimalistic. Let me just show you a couple of cards. I don't really intend on using the cards because I don't like how it feels. It really feels flimsy, and I don't think that it would last long. So I have no, and I'm also not drawn to the art style in this deck. But for me, I got this really for the guidebook, so I don't mind just keeping the cards here, or I don't know if somebody would be interested in just the cards, because I would definitely be keeping the book, at least for now, because I haven't really read through it, and it's something that I want to get into. Okay, so let me move this text to the side, and let me get this one. Okay, so this is the Star Tarot. This is the second edition, and I think this is quite a popular deck, and for good reason. So the guidebook here is massive. There's a lot to learn, and I haven't really even started. To be honest, this deck does intimidate me a little bit. Let me show you. And it's not just because it's huge. So it is a bigger than standard tarot size. It's matte, it's gilded, and there's a lot of associations, a lot of symbolism in this deck, and a lot that you can learn. So it's a bit intimidating to me. I haven't even started looking into it. When I got this deck, when I first got this, and when I first started flipping through it, like the cards were all stuck together in these blocks. So I did kind of separate them, but you can see that there are still some sections that I didn't get through. But there's, I mean, look at the art. It's really beautiful, and feels really esoteric. Like there's so many secrets that are hidden, or that you can get into. And I just know that I would be learning a lot from this deck as well. So definitely a keep. I honestly don't know when I would be getting the time. And I know I've been saying that it's been 3 years, and if you've been watching me for a long time, you're probably getting tired of it. And you know, but this is really just something that I was interested in, and I want to get into, and I am serious about getting into that. But just my personal situation, and my current work and all that, I don't have much time to really focus, but I still want to keep using it and keep enjoying tarot. So that's why I feel like I purchase decks, I share my thoughts on them on this channel, and that is part of my process. Okay, so here is another classic mass market deck. This is the Oracle of the Radiant Sun, and I got this, you guessed it, because of the book. So there's a lot of people who rave about this deck, and I think that is because you do get a lot of cards, so there's a good value for money. I don't like this type of packaging, by the way. The art style here is not my typical, it's not the typical art style I'm drawn to, but I do like the keywords that are on the deck. And I don't know, maybe it would pair quite well with some other decks that I already have. So, you know, eventually when I get into deck pairings, I think that I would be able to pair this quite easily. There's again a different kind of system, a different kind of way of reading that you can get if you study this deck. And I know those people that have really started using this swear by this deck, and I kind of see where that they're coming from as well, similar with the Star Tarot. But I think this is also another deck that kind of intimidates me, so I keep it for now, but I do plan on learning from this later. So that is the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. Definitely a keep. Okay, so let's get into other mass market decks. So this one I use a lot. This is the Monology Messages by Yasmin Bolan. I think this is her 4th deck, if I'm not mistaken. So she has the original Monology. She has the Monology Manifestation. And I can't recall if there's another one, or maybe this is the 3rd deck. But I owned all those, the previous decks, but this is the only one that I kept, and I still enjoy using. I like pairing this with other decks, especially the Radiant Wilds. I saw that pairing on, I think, Waves of Your Soul, and Fairlight Tarot, I think. And I absolutely was drawn to it, so that's why I got it. And this deck from Yasmin is the one that resonated the most. I like the phrases, I like the messages, basically, that I get from the deck. So this is the one that I've kept and will continue to keep. The art style, again, not my typical art style, but this works so well paired with other decks. So yeah, definitely enjoy this one a lot. Typical Hay House cardstock, matte cardstock, not edge. I'm planning to edge it, but something that I plan for in the future. The guidebook is also quite nice. I like always the additional messages that I like, basically Oracle decks. I realized that, you know, initially I thought that I wasn't really into Oracle decks, but I think I realized that maybe I just wasn't, or I haven't found the Oracle decks that work for me at the time. But now I absolutely love them. I have a lot that resonate with me and I use a lot. And sometimes when I'm not in the right headspace for tarot, I would always just pull a card from an Oracle deck. Okay, so this one is the Manara Erotic Tarot. And I'm just going to show you a few cards from this deck. And maybe the guidebook. So this one has a little white book, but you can see that for each of the cards, there is an astrological meaning in the meaning of the card. So that's why I added it in this category, because it does have that additional link to astrology. Now, I'm not going to show you a lot of the cards because of the nature of the art. I don't know. So I'll just flip through them quickly. But basically, you have the astrological meanings in the guidebook or in the little white book as well. And you have some glyphs on the cards themselves. So this deck, I don't really use a lot. Not sure. I think it's between a definite rehome and a maybe at this point. But yeah, so probably a rehome if I'm being honest to myself. But you know, it doesn't take up a lot of space, so that's why I kind of like hang on to it. But I haven't used it a lot and not that drawn to the imagery as well, so probably a rehome for me. Then let's take a look. Now, these two decks, I'm not really sure if they're like indie or mass market. I do think they are indie decks, but they're reasonably priced. I got these from Amazon. So this one is the Astromatrix Tarot. There is also an app that you can download for the Astromatrix. And there is a QR code for each card that you can scan, which is similar to this one as well. I'll show you in a bit. So these are the cards. They're matte, and it has the art style is very much RWS based, but more diverse. But also feels a little old school for some reason. I am not sure about this deck. I like the art. I like that it's a mix of modern fantasy. You know, it's like, and this one I feel like very old school. I don't know. It reminds me, if it's the 70s maybe. So I'm a little confused. I like the art, but it just feels sometimes all over the place for me. So it's not as cohesive. So that's why I'm kind of thrown off by it. So I think it's a maybe. So I'm not really sure whether I want to keep it. But for now, I don't mind keeping it. I do like the colors. I do like that it's very bright and diverse. Again, you have these QR codes that you can scan for additional information, which I don't mind doing, but I usually prefer a more detailed guidebook. Again, there's also an app that you can download and use. I don't use it a lot, but it's there. Now, this deck is the Lemurian Starchild Oracle, and this is the pocket edition, which is the perfect size for me because I think there's the full size or the original version of this has bigger cards, but it has a full-size guidebook. Now, this one doesn't have a guidebook, but again, you can scan for each individual card so that you can get the meaning. Now, I also just purchased the Kindle version of the guidebook as well, instead of just scanning all the time, because you know, initially I wasn't sure I would like this deck because I don't really resonate with the starseed. I don't really resonate with starseed energy, or I'm not sure. I'm interested, but I just don't feel that called to starseed energy. Or maybe some of the decks that I previously tried working with, like the Starseed Oracle, did not work for me. But this one, I mean, wow. First of all, the art on this deck is amazing. There's a mix of some like really beautiful, magical, cosmic art that just feels out of this world. And I enjoy it. I enjoy working with this. I enjoy my time with this deck. I pull from this deck when I'm just not sure what I want to read about or read for. And I usually get a really profound message. And I don't know. So definitely this one I would be keeping. I am drawn to Lemurian crystals as well. There's a definite energy that I get from Lemurians. And this deck, I've talked about this in some other videos, but there are some decks that I feel physical energy coming from the deck, which is not a lot from like the almost 300 decks that I have. I probably just less than 10 that I feel that way, and this is one of them. So very strong energy from this deck, and the art style is really beautiful. I find it really beautiful, and definitely keeping this deck in my collection. It's also reasonably priced. I think it's just under $30, so it's on Amazon. You can check it out. Okay, and then let's go to my indie decks. So we have here the decks from Rachel Jean, the Wandering Moon Tarot, and then you have the Wandering Echo Major Arcana deck. Now, the original version of this deck is white. And I rehomed that because I found, or I preferred, the black backs, and it just feels a little more magical to me. Now, this deck has somewhat minimalistic art, but it's beautiful art made by Rachel, and I do love it. I'm drawn to it. The guidebook, I'll just show you the guidebook. The guidebook is written in a font that I absolutely do not like and have difficulty reading, but I did message Rachel about it, and she kindly sent me the PDF so that I can read it more easily. But it's still quite difficult. I just wish it chose a different font. But yeah, there's a lot of, you can get a lot of information as well from the guidebook. So, you know, it's, I'm just really thankful that she accommodated my need to read something bigger. So she gave me a copy of the PDFs. So yeah, absolutely love this art. Even though I don't use it a lot, I'm mesmerized every time I pull it out. So definitely, I think this would be a keep. This Wandering Moon Tarot. This is the full 78 cards. And now I do have this Wandering Echo, which is the majors only deck that matches the original deck. So now I can't really mix and match the majors from my Midnight Sky deck with the cards here. So this is going to be a majors only deck for me. And I don't really read or use majors only decks. So I think this is a maybe. I don't really know whether I'm going to be keeping it or probably just going to be gifting it to a friend, maybe this Christmas. So yeah, so those are the two decks by Rachel Jean. And lastly, these are my decks from Studio Artemy. So I have the Astrosoul Oracle deck and the Fortuna Tarot deck. So this Astrosoul Oracle deck, I got this, I think, as a set. So that's why, or actually I don't remember anymore. But yeah, I haven't used this Astrosoul Oracle deck yet because I want to read books first on astrology before I really start. I want to start from the basics. And I do think that you can use this as for learning, but I want to start with the first few decks that I showed before I start using this deck. But I got it because I love how simple it is. It's sophisticated. The aesthetic is really nice, like the gilding, and the quality of Studio Artemy's decks are, to me, really, really good. So I feel like the value of the decks that she puts out is there, and that you can really learn from the deck. I think I had two more. Yeah, okay, so I remember now. I got this as a set. I got, there's a smaller deck that's in the set, but that one didn't resonate with me, so I rehomed it and just kept these. But so far, my favorite deck from Studio Artemy is the Fortuna Tarot deck. Now, initially, I was intimidated by this deck because it is a little bit sigilly and pippish. But the guidebook is really good. And I mean, it's just beautiful. Now, I'm absolutely tempted by the pink version of this deck. But I just have so many already that it just feels... even, I don't really mind collecting just for the sake of collecting. But it just feels... if I would just be getting the same deck, and I absolutely love this one, but that would be in a different colorway. It just, right now, I don't think it's the time for me to get that deck. But yeah, this, absolutely beautiful. Honestly, I don't consider myself as like always drawn to these holographic details. I've rehomed a lot of decks that have this aesthetic, like the Weaver Tarot, the Threads of Fate, and the the Ethereal Visions, both versions. But this deck just feels, it's really beautiful, and the guidebook is well done. There's a lot that you can learn. Surprisingly, even though this is a thick deck, I can shuffle it without any issues. And I enjoy working with it. So obviously, this one would also be a keep. Alright, so I'm just checking that I didn't miss anything, because the last video I recorded, I missed a few decks. But anyway, those have been my astrology decks, and let me choose my top 3. That's how I'm ending these videos right now. So maybe, yeah. So I choose these 3 as my top 3 in this category. So the Fortuna Tarot deck, the Lemurian Star Child, and the Monology messages. Now, I hope you find this video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click on the like button, and do consider subscribing to my channel. See you again next time. Bye!